Matthew Penstone, a member of the Joel Harden team. We're here today at Centretown United Church. We've got special guests, senior members of the Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn campaigns. We're here today to discuss how we can take the energy that they had and that grassroots excitement and apply it here in Ottawa Centre.
Can I just freak out for a tiny second and say this is super cool? Be almost inarticulate and saying this is amazing that we've had friends visiting us who have pioneered the idea of twinning big ideas and big organizing at the same time. And the great thing about the left is that it is international and that we do learn from each other. I'm thinking to myself, what is the context here for us as we face a government who maybe resembles more of an Obama administration than a Theresa May administration? A government that offers a lot of verbiage to the left, and in some cases, because I don't want to be stuck in this dumb partisan mode, is doing some meaningful change. I think about the $15 hour minimum wage that community movements fought for across not just this country, but in the United States and around the world. So people can see progress. And as we get into conversations in this riding, we hear that back, right? We also hear intense frustration on housing, on the environment, on respect for folks incarcerated and the nature of our justice system, over which the incumbent in this riding personally presides. He's the Attorney General of Ontario, the Yasser. So we are trying to figure out how we organize in this context. And what I'll say before handing it off to you, Becky, is maybe just because of who I am, I don't really want to fill up our leaflets and digital spaces and conversations with anti-liberal partisan branding. I don't personally find it very persuasive, and I would rather project big and inspire people to want more. Which is why the slogan we've come to so far that we really like is demand more from politics.
So it's so great that this, and people echoed this when we were talking about wanting to be for something and wanting to do something. Those two things really go together. People want to be for something, and then people want to actually do something about it. And we had this rule on the campaign where Bernie didn't want us to talk about the other candidate, and so, or say your name, and partly that was just because it was actually wanted to let Bernie and the senior team define what we said about the other candidate, so that we could really focus on what Bernie was about, and that was almost our entire grassroots campaign, even though what you saw on social media and in the media was very much, sort of like there was a lot of people talking personality. That wasn't the campaign. That wasn't those of us who were talking on the phone. And in fact, we never said her name. We just always talked about the billionaire-backed candidates, meaning the guys on the other side as well as Hillary Clinton, right? And I think that that imposed a really great discipline on the campaign, in part because you can really sidetrack your campaign by getting into fights, and being overly personal about, candidates who've disappointed us and the companies who've disappointed in the past, but also it did focus us on what we were for. And one of the things that we're not learning very well in our country, but we really saw on the ground, and I'd be interested to hear from Adam and Emma about this too, about the UK experience, is that the too often political campaigns, they want to try and find this message that works with this mythical swing voter. You have to go out with messages that it's not just a message that's going to move a voter. You want to have a message that a volunteer is moved to be passionate and talk about, right? And so we are trying to move our politics to something where, in campaigns we talk about what we're for, and we don't just think about messages that meet the middle, and that's the only thing the campaign ever feels. They're too cautious to talk about anything else. It's like we have to talk about the things that the base believes in, because the only way we're going to win and build power is if we can talk to a lot of people. And we can't talk to a lot of people. We don't have people that are fired up to go and talk. And the more passionate you are talking to someone, the more you're going to convince them and bring them onto your side. Because even if they don't agree with you about everything, they like you. You know what I mean? And they think you believe it, right? And this is actually important to the science of moving voters. So I love that you're talking about what you're for, and that was part of why we had so many people involved in the Bernie campaign, because talking to voters was something that we got to bring our whole selves, be true to who we were and what we cared about, and that really came through in our conversations with voters.
When the snap general election was called in April 2017, the kind of establishment of the party wanted to just run the same campaign, as if the last 2 years hadn't happened, as if we hadn't tripled the size of the membership of the Labour Party, as if Jeremy hadn't won on a platform of setting out a real different, bold agenda for the direction of travel. And luckily, Jeremy and the team around Jeremy and the movement, the people wanted something different, and we pushed forward and we had something different. And I think that is so important, not to be held back by the kind of conventional wisdom about how you do elections.
Right.
And there's so many different ways that can manifest itself, right down to canvassing itself. We have to remember at the time when the election was called, the Labour Party were like between 20 and 24 points behind. So we had to pull the stops out to mobilise the base. But as soon as the manifesto came out, everybody was there for exactly the reasons that Becky said, because people actually want to talk about, free education for everybody from cradle to grave. People
when they say manifesto, they mean their party platform.
Yeah, not the Communist Manifesto.
Sadly, not the manifesto either. But yeah, sorry, the platform. And so we organised these big trainings, and we brought people together before they went out canvassing to practice and to talk and to share ideas. And I think that was a really, really important part of the campaign as well. Getting away from the conventional wisdom that the only thing you have to do when you go canvassing is knock on the door, ask them which way they voted at the last election, record it, close the door, and off you go.
And that's like whether it's a face-to-face conversation with a voter on the doorstep, or whether it's in a room like this, it's creating a culture that is positive, that's hopeful, and that spreads. And I think, if you turn up with your whole self to a doorstep, and first of all, listen to the person at the door, they've got opinions, even if they might initially treat you with hostility or sort of an apparent disengagement, or saying they're not interested in politics. As soon as you ask them what they're interested, what's bothering them, what's affecting them in their area, you'll hear all these opinions. And then I find, instead of coming across as sort of preaching at people, just sort of really listening, and then when you start to, after a while, people will be ready for you to share what you've got to say, because they know you've come for a reason. And then you build a personal rapport, and you find that common ground. And even if they don't agree with absolutely everything, it will at least make them think twice. And at least respect you as the person. So if you as the person on behalf of Joel or whoever else you're on behalf of act with authenticity and credibility and decency, that will plant a seed in their mind. And it's not certain, I think, because there is a risk sometimes with left-wing ideas that people in their pre-post sectarian days, for example, maybe there could be a tendency to be sort of puritanical or moralistic or certain. And then that forces other people to then retreat back and sort of disagree, and it's this combative style of politics. Whereas when it's done through an approach of just listening and being more empathetic, I think it brings a lot more people on the journey. And similarly to with Bernie, we had in the UK with Jeremy always insisting on never having personal attacks on the other person and not running a negative campaign, because negativity breeds negativity as well. I think it's far better to talk about the vision, the ideas, the policies in a hopeful way.
So I'm reminded hearing some of these reflections that there's nothing new happening here, but everything here is new. This is actually new. It feels new. And the possibility of this moment feels incredibly right. And at the same time, as I've been following the convention from outside, I haven't been inside, but I've been getting reports from all kinds of friends who've been trying to move much more interesting, bolder, leftier motions and resolutions, that there's a really hard core of party conservatism that is systematically shutting down all the left-wing attempts inside that convention again. And I've been going around in national media talking about the new possibilities and the new leader looking for his agenda and a new spirit of openness. But the flip side of that is they're keeping control, as always. So what do? Build something that they absolutely can't stop. There's no benefit actually in going in and kind of trying to, fight hand to hand with people who are trying to suppress the change. It has to be overwhelmed by an entry of a huge number of new people and excitement. And I'm really inspired by Joel. I tend to be more combative. I cut my teeth in debate on television, right? And I find myself even in these interviews that we've been doing, railing against Trudeau and all the betrayals. And I think there is a bit of, that can rally people. But Joel is relentlessly friendly and positive and respectful and nice and and that really works. That's the beacon. That's the feeling people want to be around. And that is the way that a party which has conservative tendencies and control freak mentalities can be overrun. It can't be defeated. It can only be overwhelmed by a tide of people.
I think this question, I want to get back to this question about, and Avi talked about it, about morale, and we often thought about it just as part of our plan, about how when it's like a real long shot, people would ask me, like, do you really think Bernie can win? And I'd be like, I quit my job. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sleeping places where, like, I don't want to take my shoes off to go to the bathroom. Right? I mean, you know what I mean? Some of the places where we stay were, like, well, not so good. And I was just like, yes, I think Bernie can win. And that's why I'm here. And there was this feeling, you know, everywhere when we talked to people, it was just like, well, if enough people got involved, I mean, there's so many people that agreed with Bernie about the issues, and we would ask people in meetings, how many people have talked to friends, and their friends say they agree with Bernie on the issues, but they're not for him because they don't think he can win. And then everybody not only would raise their hand, but they'd be so frustrated. They'd be like, me, all my friends. And it would be like, well, what if we could get enough of those people to get involved in the campaign, then we might actually have enough people to win. And so we named that, which is that we actually do, it is a long shot, we can win, we need a lot more people to get involved. And then in the early days of our campaign, oh my gosh, celebrity! In the early days of the campaign, we organized around, literally our goals were increasing the number of events and the number of volunteers every week on week that we had, because we knew that growing the volunteer base was going to be key to winning. And so we just really focused on bringing in enough people so that we would feel like the long shot was not as much of a long shot. And so that became one of our goals, is to get more people in so that it would be more likely that we would win. And then the more people that came in, the more people thought, hey, we can actually win this. Right? So then that reinforced that. And that was our experience. I don't know about you guys.
This is the woman who, in an election where the Labour Party were 24 points behind the Tories, took a 8,000 Tory majority into a 2,500 Labour majority with no help from the party.
I still believe we could do it, and I think when you can translate that enthusiasm and that hope to the activist space, I think that's probably the starting point for us. And actually, you know, defying the odds. You know, imagine if we did it, how we would all feel. Do you know what I mean? And obviously being there, I mean, I was able to, because of my job, my boss allowed me to take the time out to really focus on the campaign. So I was there pretty much every day, morning till night. I was out every campaign session, and I was just there to encourage everyone. And we had a great manifesto. I think that's really important. When you've got the right policies that people need, that are going to be responding to the everyday issues that you know, society are facing, our constituents are facing, that also helps. But pretty much just being there and actually, you know, having the hope, because you need to believe you can win to start off. If you believe that you can't do something, then it's not going to happen. You know, it's positive reinforcement as well.
Marsha, what do you say when people say, like, yeah, we're going to like put Marsha de Cordova in the shadow cabinet because that, you know, like they'll go to, we'll win for sure next time. Like people must actually come at you directly with that because you become the symbol, right, of the Corbyn movement through your election. What do you say when people come at you with that?
I think ultimately, what we've done is we've proved, I mean, two years ago, nobody thought A, Jeremy could be leader, or B, that Labour would actually come back in the general election last year. We started over 20 points behind in the polls, and we gained over 40 seats, most of which were seats that were held by Conservatives. Like my seat was held by a Conservative Treasury Minister, with her strong majority, 8,000 majority. No one thought we could overturn that, and we did, and that was through our politics and our policy. So I think when the Liberals or even the right I think it's their politics and it is the politics of fear, and ultimately I think we've proved them wrong, and I think we will continue to be. I think one of the lessons that we've got to make sure we learn is never to be complacent and never to just think, okay, yeah, well, we're in this place and we're going to stay here. No, because the right and the Liberals will continue to try and bring you down and continue to try and overshadow your policies, will continue to actually discredit what you're doing. We know what we're doing is right. In the UK, 2.5 years ago, the Labour opposition party there were supporting Tory policies of welfare reforms against disabled people, for instance. And today, 2.5 years later, we are strongly opposing them and actually coming out with even better policies. So it is possible.
And I will say two things to add to the conversation our friends have initiated as we try to figure out what our reality, what our context means relative to this amazing learning that we can take advantage of elsewhere. I am somebody who's been, as Avi as others have said, a community organizer for the LEAP Manifesto. I'm proud of it. I'm not as closed-minded a socialist as I once was, but I'm still a socialist. And now my socialist begins from the principle of humility and listening to people, as Adam and others have said, because I've grown up. I give my kids a lot of credibility, actually, for making me more humble. So we're beginning this moment with, not about me, but with this approach that is not only mine, it's a shared approach of listening with humility, but posing big, bold ideas. And I want to suggest, as a way to bridge some of this conversation, that the Ontario NDP has given us two very crucial demands that we can use to bridge what we've got on paper to what we believe in our hearts we have to do with big ideas. And those two ideas are universal pharmacare, because there are 2 million people in this province that don't have access to prescription drug coverage and are suffering, and we've met them at the doorstep. We've met people cutting their pills in half. We've met people who are getting sick and ending up in emergency rooms because they don't have access to insulin, even drugs like insulin on a regular basis. And what we're dealing with is a government that opportunistically, months before the election, has introduced a pharmacare plan for youth, 25 and younger. And a lot of parents, I'm a parent, a lot of parents are saying, well, this is fantastic. So at the doorstep, what we've been saying to bridge that is to say big pharmaceutical corporations who donate massively to the Liberal Conservative parties don't get to run that aspect of this province. That this party has actually believed in the idea of Medicare for all, and pharmacare is part of Medicare. Dental care ought to be part of Medicare. Decent home care and respect for our elders and how they're treated in places where they live ought to be part of Medicare. So I want to suggest to us that we actually have that right now. We don't have to wait for the manifesto or the burden. We have that and we should use it. It's a brilliant campaign to connect with everyday people. The second thing we've got is the idea of taking hydro back into public ownership. Okay? And I can say this as an environmentalist, as a socialist, this is an opportunity for us. Because a lot of the thinking in the party right now is that this is only about the bills people pay, which are crushing. In Ottawa, we have Ottawa Hydro. It hasn't had the exact same experience as Hydro One, which was previously a public company for folks who are visiting from out of Canada, but has been privatized under this government. A third, and they're planning a second, 2/3 privatized, the grid of this province. So people where I grew up in rural Ontario are being crushed. They're paying hydro bills, which are as much as their rent, as much as their mortgage in some cases. Here in Ottawa, it's not quite as bad, but it is bad in places reliant on electric baseboard heating, like community housing. And we've knocked on doors in community housing, and people are suffering. So the demand to bring hydro back into public ownership isn't just about reducing their bills, which is crucial. I think for us, we have to, one of the things, there's so many things that I'm still processing from that wonderful barnstorm we had Thursday night. But something I won't forget is that friends of mine from the Ottawa Renewable Energy Cooperative, if you haven't heard of them, showed up. And they are going to be hosting their own phone bank for us. This is an organization that up until that night did not engage in partisan campaign. Right? But they have 7,000 members. They have 17 renewable energy projects under construction right now in our area, some of which are done in partnership with Indigenous nations. This is our opportunity to tell those folks and to tell our whole community that we will leap. We will leap because we have a vision of taking hydro back into public ownership and building renewable energy now. Doing it now. Not waiting, doing it right now.
Yeah.
Are you in? Are you in? And it's not freezing to death. All right, so we're out here in Centretown, and I am honored to be with such a fantastic crew. Marsha, coming from the UK, bringing that energy, and this campaign is about demanding more from politics. But in order to demand more from politics, we can't go it alone. We've got to earn people's respect. So today we are in apartment buildings in Centretown, knocking on the doors to earn their respect. I'm excited. What do you think?
I'm really excited. This is obviously my first time going out knocking doors out here in Canada, and I'm really excited because I'm with one of the best people I've met so far, the candidate.
Oh.
4 hours in the field every day, Joel. 4 hours. 4 hours with me.
Drop campaign and then we'll be back out.
What I'm hearing from tenants is that their rent's going up and they're getting pushed out of their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they're angry about it.
Yeah.
So what I can tell you is that if we get elected in this riding, we're not going to be for the landlords or for the developers. We're going to be in a vision of this cooperative housing. This is what we want people to have access to.
All right.
What do you think? Make sense?
It makes sense.
So we want every apartment building in this neighborhood to be as beautiful as this one, in a nutshell. We've been in far too many apartment buildings where rents are really high and conditions are really bad.
Yeah.
So we want real rent control. What do you think about that?
Thanks, guys. See you later, Anthony.
Take care, eh, everyone?
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a lovely day.
So today was transformative for me. I had some of my favorite people, not just in my city or in my country, but internationally here with us today. We had folks from the Bernie Sanders campaign here today. We had folks from the Jeremy Corbyn team in this very space, 507 Bank Street, Centertown United Church. And we had an amazing discussion about the challenges and pitfalls of pursuing big ideas and big organizing. But on balance, people are ready. They're ready for bringing something extra to politics, not being happy with piecemeal politics, piecemeal change, keeping the chattering classes of our media happy. I'm hearing a lot of momentum for pushing for something bigger and much braver, and that's what gives me a lot of courage, because we've got this 4-month sprint now that we have to engage in to earn a whole bunch of respect here in Ottawa Centre, and I know we can do it. This afternoon, we ended our discussions by knocking on doors in Centertown, and I had the honor of doing that, with Marcia de Cordova, Shadow Cabinet Minister for the Labour Party for people with disabilities, and just seeing how Marcia can connect with people was a reminder to me of how important it is to be your full self, your honest, energetic full self. And I know if we can do that, if I can do that, if this team can do that, we are going to pull off an upset on June 7th. The columnists are going to be asking themselves, why didn't we see this coming? They didn't see Trump coming. They didn't see Corbyn coming. They didn't think Sanders could do as well as they did in the US, and they won't understand how someone like me and some team like this can surprise the political establishment. But we will. Mark my words. Join us.